Hello and welcome to the O&M Stockroom. We're your hosts Brian McGarry
and Ken O'Malley.
Tonight is episode 25 of Complimentary Cinema. If you are new to the channel, Complimentary Cinema is a program where we review and discuss films that you can watch for free that are available on YouTube. Please be warned that we discuss these films in detail, so consider this a full spoiler alert. And I believe tonight was my turn to pick. And Ken, how do we pick these films?
We judge all of these films by three criteria. The first is the film well written? The second is the film well acted? And of course, the third is the film well produced? And those are the answers we tried to answer in this podcast.
And what is tonight's film?
Tonight's film is The Fourth Floor from 1999.
Directed by John Klausner, who also wrote it. That was his directorial debut. And the short version is that it's a bit of a thriller. And let's see. So let's talk about our cast of characters here. So we have Juliet Lewis as Jane Emmeline, William Hurt as Greg Harrison, Shelley Duvall as Martha Stewart, not the famous one, Austin Pendleton as Mr. Collins, Tobin Bell as the locksmith, Artie Lang as Jerry, and then just a bunch of people nobody cares about as minor background characters.
I would say Robert Costanzo.
As the exterminator, yeah, he was gold.
Yes. But otherwise, yes.
Yeah. So Ken, why don't you lay the scene for us?
So we start the film off with there's a weatherman who is, we see an ad that is for him apparently, and it turns out his girlfriend is an interior designer, and the beginning scene is just kind of them living their life. I don't know how else to describe it. They're going out, they're just talking.
They're walking around an old neighborhood that the weatherman grew up in, and he was like, I used to walk down the street to go to school, and she shows off her dead Aunt Cecilia's brownstone apartment in New York City, and where she reveals to her boyfriend Greg, Mr. William Hurt, that she wants to move into it because she can get in for the low price in 1999, mind you, of $400. Which is, even, by any standards, that's pretty dirt cheap.
Well, and the Greg Harrison character even says, you could probably get, $2,000, $3,000 a month for this. So, I mean, now that would be even more astronomical.
I couldn't even imagine what that apartment would cost.
Yeah.
$6,000, $7,000.
Easily.
It's more than 10 square feet.
Yeah. It has rooms.
Multiple
Plural rooms.
Not just one room for 20 people.
And it's technically the penthouse.
It is. It is because it's on the top floor.
I don't know if
on the fifth floor.
I don't know if that counts if it's only a 5-story building, but whatever.
It's about as good as you can expect for an old, cool New York building. So they have a little bit of a spat because he just bought a house out in the country and he wants her to go move in with him, and she wants her own space, and she wants this really bitchin' cheap apartment that her aunt left her. And, I can kind of see where they're both are coming from. She's a lot younger than him. She likes her space. She likes her freedom. She wants to live alone. Mr., Greg Harrison is moving on up in the weatherman world, and he wants to settle down. And he's got Mr. Serious Face through most of this movie.
And you just get the feeling they're in a little bit different parts of their life. Like you were saying, she wants to be independent for a while. And it's not that she doesn't want to be with him. It's just she wants to live by her own rules and, figure stuff out on her own for a little while. And still be in the relationship, but not necessarily live together.
And Greg wants, he never says it, but you can tell he wants to get married and have kids, do the whole 9 yards.
Right.
But with Juliet Lewis, I don't know. So she moves into this, she ends up moving into this apartment. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of movers helping her in. And she meets who's the first neighbor? Martha.
Yeah.
The first neighbor is Martha Stewart, Shelley Duvall's character. It was the friendly but nosy, annoying neighbor lady that I think we've all met at some point.
And like the persistent person that like she invites herself in, she's commenting about all of the stuff in the apartment and, knows getting in her business.
Knows everybody's business, but also preaches the virtues of privacy.
True.
Which is very typical of such people. And what else? So that kind of sets the tone for the sorts of neighbors she's going to have. There's another neighbor that she spies on the stairwell who just kind of crouches and just scurries off like a rat that you've shined light on. And and then she meets the super of the building, Jerry, played by Artie Lang, whom I'm amazed hasn't OD'd on drugs yet. But this was back when he was only moderately messed up, as opposed to full blown. But anyway, so he shows up banging on the walls, being like, "Hey, how can you move in here? Nobody told me." And you find out pretty quick that he's a special case. Never tell you exactly what's wrong with him, but he's not all there. And he's the landlord's son who lives in the basement. I mean, that's a comfort, right?
Yeah, it is just kind of unsettling. That's the theme of all the people in this building. In their own way, each one of them brings a little bit of strangeness. And the other people on the second floor, it's a couple, and they're both like completely deaf, and they're always locking each other out and banging on the door, and
Betty, let me in. Oh, Betty. And they just take turns locking each other out of the apartment.
Yeah.
2 keys might help with that, but that's just a suggestion.
So, in real life, everyone has their own quirks. The people in this movie, it's definitely dialed up a little bit.
It's dialed up enough that when we started watching this, I literally thought that her aunt got such a good deal on the apartment because it literally was low-income housing for crazy people.
Yeah.
That's what you think when you're just a few minutes into getting the lay of the land, so to speak.
So the next thing that happens is she is moving things around in the apartment as you do when you're moving in, and she do they knock first or
no? They
just leave the note, right?
I think they just leave the note. It's like, you must be quiet.
Yeah, there's just a note that's like from a typewriter, and it says whatever, like be quiet. You don't want to cause any problems.
You don't want there to be any altercations.
Yes, altercations. That was
which if somebody left me a note like that, I tell them to fuck off. Which is kind of her attitude with this as well.
Yeah, I mean, she gets there, but at the beginning, she's trying to be
civil,
diplomatic about it.
Whatever. And then she ends up making more noise, trying to hammer something in. That brings another note. I can't remember exactly what that said.
The next one was the one where it was like, I don't remember. It was kind of like something like there's still time, or like you can, like
you have been warned. Oh no! So the second one was like, you have been warned, and then the third one was.
But the second one was something like you can be and the third one maybe is the one I'm thinking where it's like there can be no more forgiveness or
there
something.
Was no, the third one was a packet full of all kinds of lists.
Oh yeah,
of things that she can and cannot do in her apartment, and
yeah.
That didn't go over well. And all of these are supposedly coming from the 4th floor apartment, which is occupied by a woman, an old elderly lady named Alice. And so she's trying to be nice and accommodating to this little old lady.
But Alice never comes out.
You never see Alice.
Right. She's always she's a shut-in and she's a little strange. She just stays in her place.
So our character Jane is unable to talk to Alice or engage with Alice other than an exchange of notes. Like she replies, "Hey, I'm sorry," on one of the notes and tapes it to the door, but can never seem to get anywhere.
So another thing parallel kind of to this main story is also Jane is trying to get familiar with the neighborhood. So she's looking out the window across the way to the next building over. And she's kind of noticing all of the quirks of her other neighbors, in the next building. So she sees like there's like the stoner kind of couple.
Every apartment building needs an old hippie couple.
There's like a flamboyant gay couple. And then there's just another kind of guy that always seems to be doing creepy things. It just kind of works out that way.
Just kind of hanging out. Like there's like a naked woman on his bed, and his hands are covered in what appears to be blood.
And she woke up, she heard screaming too with that.
Yeah,
with that one.
And it doesn't help either that it's Tobin Bell from the Saw movies.
Yes,
it's literally Jigsaw living across from her. Not that he was Jigsaw then,
right? But it was perfect casting.
It was perfect casting
because he just has that look.
He has that look. He has that gravitas. He's not the kind of guy I'd want to like share an elevator with.
Right.
I would be concerned.
And like the quieter he was, the more concerned I would be.
Yeah, it's like, do you want to play a game? Move into the apartment building across the street. I don't know. Anyway, very well cast. And he's, because he's the right, what I like about Tobin Bell, he's the right amount of normal looking. But there's something not quite right with the guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In any movie I've ever seen him in, he looks on the surface at a glance like a normal human. But there's something underneath that isn't right.
It's like an aura.
It is. I can't really describe it because it's not necessarily a visual thing. Mm. You just get, it's the vibes.
Yeah, you just know.
The vibes transcend space and time and just, they get you. So she's just surrounded by kooks everywhere. Mm-hmm. There's something is wrong with everybody in her building.
And like throughout this though, it's just as a character, she is so stubborn and focused on doing this and being in this place. And she's a decorator. She's an interior decorator by trade. So of course she wants it just the right way. She's very particular about the way things are. So she does have to move the furniture around. She needs to hammer things into the wall,
Anybody who's ever moved anywhere knows that, it's a little noisy at first.
Right. So, but then you have to keep asking yourself, like, at what point would you call it quits with this place? Your neighbor's leaving you these strange notes. The people across the way are kind of strange. Like, all this stuff is like building up. And you have to wonder, like, what is she, like, what's her breaking point? That's like what I kept thinking about through all of this part.
Because it does slowly, steadily escalate.
And a lot of it, too, is like they used kind of the classic horror buildups, too, where little things surprise her because she's on edge and it's not anything crazy or weird happening. It's just the little things start making her jump. And that in turn kind of, it translates to you as the viewer as well, kind of through this part. And she does meet the other neighbor who she's been warned about. Martha warned her that Mr.
Collins
should not be associated with. And when she runs into him the first time, it turns out he's like the most normal person in this whole situation. And he identifies with the fact that she's a collector and likes art and stuff like that, and he is too. And they have a very nice conversation. And it's like, oh well, this other guy, the Martha Stewart lady, she must just not get along with him. It must be something like personal. Like obviously this guy's all right.
Well, yeah, and we find out that he was the one scurrying up the stairs a couple times before,
right,
trying not to be seen. And the first time we meet him up close, he's trying to hide behind a bush.
Mm. Yeah, but it turns out he was trying to get away from Martha.
Which, Shelley Duvall's character, which I absolutely understand.
Yes.
Because by that point, we've seen her 2 or 3 times, and she's easily one of the most irritating people you ever see.
We were ready to scurry away from her.
I was ready to scurry away from the screen every time she popped up again.
Yeah.
So, I get it. So at some point,
There's the packet
after the packet,
with all the rules, and like she takes it to her friends and they think it's just crazy. But she can't really do anything about it. So they have the bout where she really goes at it, where she's trying to nail something in the wall and the person downstairs is knocking on the ceiling.
Yeah, just banging on the ceiling. And then she starts jumping up and down, and then she gets the note. There's no more warnings or no forgiveness or something.
Mm-hmm.
I can't.
There's a number of notes.
There's a lot of notes. The point is that they escalate in their threats, their threatening nature. And the next morning, she ends up slipping and tripping on the stairs and falling down the stairs. A full flight of stairs, because the first couple steps were, I don't know, covered in lard or grease or something. And which is ironic because her Aunt Cecilia, who lived in that apartment, died by falling down the stairs. Coincidence?
I don't think it was a
Something more?
coincidence.
I don't think so either, Ken, but we don't know yet.
No.
But we do see a close-up of a hand literally slathering on the grease onto the stairs. So it definitely leans that way.
And she like twisted her ankle, kind of.
Yeah, she gets messed up. Not bad, but bad enough it pisses her off. And the following, that night, she blasts some L7 and does some like jumping jacks. And
because she's just, she realizes there's nothing she can do about.
Yeah. Or maybe that was the night before she got greased. I can't recall. It blurs together.
Yeah, maybe.
We did only watch this film once just before this podcast. It's a smudge.
Either way.
But either way, so she's being childish. The downstairs neighbor is just a jerk and being more of a jerk. And the temperature slowly rises.
Yeah, that's the part where the tiles in the kitchen get broken by the pounding from the under the floor. And that's, I think, the first time the police get involved.
Yeah, and the police, they do their normal thing where they show up and they're dismissive. And it doesn't help that the night she saw the neighbor across the street, Tobin Bell, or in this case, a locksmith boy. She saw him one night with like blood on his hands after hearing some screaming. So she, tried to call 911 on him, but never really followed through with that apparently, because Martha had to come ask for sugar in the middle of the night. I've had neighbors like that too. And so the police are just, okay, so you already were going to complain about somebody else and you didn't follow through with that. And you're just gonna, so like, yeah, it's busted pipes. Call your landlord.
Oh, and then the beauty of all that is like everything where the answer would be like something normal. Like there's a reason why it's not the answer. Like the super is not reliable.
No.
First of all, the neighbor she saw, we don't know whether anything happened there or not, but we just have to assume that everything was fine. But everything else is unsettling. There's the part right after that too. Like she sees the neighbor, calls 911 and chickens out on it, or just doesn't go through with it. Then she finds that her lock has been messed with on her door, and she has to call a locksmith to come fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that the neighbor she thought was creepy is the locksmith.
Yes.
So he comes and replaces her lock. And it turns out that he keeps the keys for all the people in the building because the super guy can't be trusted with the keys.
The guy who can't be trusted with the keys is Artie Lang, a.k.a. Jerry. I wouldn't trust Artie Lang with keys in real life, much less playing a special needs super who basically threatened to steal her keys the first day that she moved in.
Yeah.
It's a little unstable.
But like at this point, like you can't trust the locksmith neighbor. You can't trust the super. You can't trust any of the other individual neighbors.
You can't. Yeah, you certainly don't want to go to Martha for help.
You can't trust the police.
You can't count on the police. Her boyfriend Greg is butthurt that she won't move in with him.
Right. So he wants to use all of this as an excuse for her to leave.
and he's, a couple times that, they get together, he gets a little emo. The first night she tells him about the wanting to move into that place, she kind of sprung it on him, and he takes that pretty personally. And I can't remember another instance, but he walks off and gets a cab and cancels dinner.
That was the first, near the beginning.
Yeah.
And then when they have dinner in the house, and they're drying the dishes, and that was a big thing. He was drying the dishes the wrong way because she's so particular about everything. And he said, "What are we doing here? Like, we're playing house. If we're not living together, we're just playing house. This isn't like our place."
It's just kind of funny because he said he accused her of not being able to compromise.
Yeah.
And it was her way or bust. And yet,
correct.
Every time, it seems to me like he had more of the problems and was less of the compromising type.
Well, I think that's part of their attraction, is they both are the same way.
They're both just stubborn, hard-headed idiots.
Yes.
Yes. But both likable, though.
Yes. It's worth mentioning that at all points in the movie, they're good characters. You can root for them. You don't necessarily want them to break up, or there's no problem with them.
They are two peas in a pod. They're both very independent, both very strong individuals. Like Juliet Lewis's character Jane is not weak. William Hurt's character Greg is not weak. They're strong, confident people who are just kind of plowing their way through the world to get what they want. And they're just Greg wants them to be in their little bubble together, and she wants two bubbles side by side. Is there not room in this world for both?
Yes. So what happens then? How does things escalate after that? Because we had the floor break.
Well, so she's called the cops at some point about 3 times. Somebody comes into her apartment and knocks her out. After she gets a letter. Okay, so let's backtrack. At some point, after she's fallen down the stairs.
Yeah.
A little bit after that, not necessarily because of that, but a little after that event, she gets a little, card saying, "I'm sorry. Can we have a truce?" Okay. Which is more than that downstairs neighbor has done for her. I'll say that. She ends up getting a box, a giant package. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on.
I was going to say, you jumped again.
This is the problem. See, this is why I need to take notes.
But it's because of this movie. It's just it's a slow, very slow building tension. And so all these little things, the order didn't matter.
Long story short, she decides, because she can't get help from anybody, she wants to sneak into that apartment when no one's there. Because, yes.
Before that.
The
next thing that happened before it went crazy was the mice and the insects.
We absolutely were going to gloss over the exterminator, and we can't do that.
No. So she gets up one day and there's mice all over her apartment.
Everywhere.
There's flies everywhere. There's maggots coming up out of the drain.
A lot of maggots.
And it's just it's pandemonium. So she has to call the exterminator.
And the exterminator is Robert Costanza. And you may know him as the fat construction guy from Total Recall. You may know him as the fat DC cop guy from Die Hard 2. You may know him as Detective Bullock from Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. He's just a bit character, a bit actor who he's in the movie for all the 5 minutes, and he's just a wonder.
Yeah,
he's the genuine slice of New York that is squeezed into this movie.
Right. It is funny because everyone else in the movie isn't super New Yorky.
He brings all of the New York.
Yeah, he makes up for all of the rest of them.
He really does, and I love it. So he points out that there's a big hole drilled into the floor where the mice are being basically pumped into this apartment from below. It's like, "Hey, you look at here, that's an albino." I'm going to do a terrible New York accent, but Talks about there being a white lab mouse. That's not, it's not the New York City sewer rat. That's a lab mice. That came from somewhere else. And then he shows her the hole, and he's like, "Hey, lady, you don't got a rat problem. You got a neighbor problem."
And that was one of my favorite characters in the whole movie.
That was just one of my favorite lines in the whole movie. Because it's not even what you say, it's how you say it, and he said it well.
And I think the other thing, too, is like he was the only person that just straight up believed her because he, did an investigation.
He knows his rodents.
Yeah.
It was like having an actual forensic detective up there. It was beautiful.
It was just nice in the middle of the movie to have like someone that believed her and saw everything how it was.
Just a straight New Yorker to just come on and be like, this is fucked up.
You got a moment of sanity.
It was good. It was like a nice drink of cool water on a hot summer day.
And then it just dove off the edge.
It did.
So
she's she goes downstairs and looks out and sees that the lights are off in that apartment where they normally are on. So she decides to use the fire escape to kind of crawl in and do some sleuthing. And, she finds predictably disturbing stuff. There's a whole layout of her apartment, including the furniture placement on the ceiling of this apartment. There's packing peanuts everywhere. There's what else? There's a map of the building.
It's just in really bad shape.
Very bad shape.
Like all the wallpaper's torn and, everything's a mess. And yeah, just the fact that like you can see all the holes drilled in the floor where all the different areas of the house upstairs are. And it's very unsettling. Someone's obviously just been observing her and tormenting her.
Like a full-time job.
Yeah.
Like the amount of work and effort for how little she's been there. Like somebody had to drop everything they were doing and essentially focus all their intention on this, which in itself is unnerving. Anyway, while she's in there, she's taking some pictures and the intercom goes off.
And she also found the typewriter.
Oh, she found the typewriter too.
That had a starting of a letter in it.
So the source of the annoying, threatening, cryptic letters. So the intercom goes off while she's in there. She decides to answer. It's like, "Hey, delivery for your upstairs neighbor. Can we just leave it with you?" She accepts it. It's basically coffin-sized, a giant cardboard box. And she takes it upstairs to her apartment, which you and I were groaning the entire time.
That's the first mistake.
That was the first mistake. Why the hell would you do that? So she ends up opening it, and it's full of packing peanuts. Also, there are bags of packing peanuts constantly outside the door of apartment number 4 on the 4th floor. I guess there's just one apartment per floor in this building. Hence the clever title of the film. So she opens up this box full of packing peanuts. She stabs at it with a knife and not really finding anything. And she dumps some of it out and then finds, lo and behold, the I'm sorry letter card that she left for the neighbor on the 4th floor, Alice. And she opens it up and, she had written truce, ? And in typed print, it was truce accepted. And then it was a couple of pictures of her aunt's dead body at the bottom of the stairwell.
Yep.
No good.
It was very disturbing.
So she rounds up her stuff and she's like, all right, I'm going to get out of here. She grabs the letters, grabs the photos, and then somebody breaks into her apartment and knocks her out over the head. And she wakes up in the kitchen she doesn't wake up in the kitchen, but she's left in the kitchen with the stove on.
Yeah.
Pumping gas into the room.
And then we cut to her at the hospital where her friend from work and her boyfriend are there.
That was her lawyer.
Oh, lawyer from work.
I don't think she has any friends.
You know what I mean. Associate from work.
It was her lawyer. And who we saw at work earlier because she was talking about trying to press charges or do an investigation. So anyway, so basically she doesn't have any evidence. Her lawyer just isn't giving her anything to work with there. William Hurt's character, Greg, is very stoic, he predominantly plays everything at like a 2, occasionally going up to 3. Once he went up to 4 for half a second. But generally, he's a very calm, very stoic, incredibly not monotone, but extremely well composed individual. And in the cab on the way back, leaving the hospital, he's like, hey, you don't have to go back there. You can stay with me. You never have to go in there again. And she goes back to his place, and then she wakes up in the middle of the night and goes back to the building, where our final confrontation ensues.
And we were just like, no.
It's like, no, stop.
Don't do it.
The apartment's not that nice. You've got maggots.
She goes back to get her stuff, or she just wants to look.
She goes back and grabs a crowbar and starts beating on the door of number 4.
That's right. So, Mr. Collins finds her in the hallway beating on the door, and he was just like, oh, it's okay, and like calmed her down, brought her down to his place, which is the first time we're finally seeing the inside of it. And it has like a ton of, Egypt and Middle Eastern kind of relics in it, and, posters on the wall, or not posters, I guess. Maps, yeah.
Maps and architectural drawings of ancient ruins.
So they're kind of just chatting, and she's venting a little bit of her craziness.
And he believes her, which is a huge relief to her, which inspires her to keep gushing more and more about her rights as, as an apartment owner and everything. And he's, telling her like, yeah, I understand, I believe you. And then she recognizes something on one of the maps of an old,
it was in Egypt.
I think it was an Egyptian burial chamber, the portcullis. She saw the word portcullis in the apartment of number 4.
Right.
On the wall, and she realizes, the connection.
And then she looks up.
And Mr. Collins has a gigantic Egyptian cat sculpture and just smashes her over the head with it.
Well, she also, though, as she looks up, she sees that there's also writing on the top, on the ceiling of his apartment, about the apartment above his.
Too little, too late. She discovers who Alice really is. Alice is dead, and he killed her, presumably, because she canceled all. That's a whole separate side thing. But essentially, there is no Alice. It was just this guy.
Yeah. He killed Alice and embalmed her in his bathtub.
Like you do when you're obsessed with Egypt. And I was kind of disappointed when we found out it was really him. Because he was completely non-threatening. Which served him well in the beginning of the film. But when the reveal was that this was our villain, he couldn't live up to it.
I think it would have been better if he had an accomplice and it wasn't just him. I think that's because you're right. He was just kind of a non-threatening character.
He not for lack of effort, but he just didn't have it.
It would have been a nice twist for someone else to be involved too.
Oh, sure. Like Martha Stewart, Shelley Duvall's character, because
I thought for sure she was coming back.
I really did too. I thought she was going to end up having a full arc where maybe she was Alice. Because, she really was very controlling and tried to be domineering with who Jane talked to. And
see, I thought it was going to be like Jane was going to almost get away. And then Martha was going to be there she thought she was going to help her. And then it turned out she was in on it. Something like that.
Yeah. And it just didn't quite work out that way. And she ends up, so after that, it basically just evolves into a fight between her and Mr. Collins. And at some point, they make it back to her apartment where you think she's going to hop on the fire escape and get out, but instead grabs a rolling pin from the kitchen and then scurries around, wasting valuable time. And then the scuffle continues as Mr. Collins comes through the fire escape. And then the locksmith guy just shows up out of nowhere to help.
Because he's been looking through the window.
Through binoculars, mind you.
Yeah. Which we do find out at the end. It is because he is an artist. And he's been drawing things. So he has drawings of all the things she's been looking at and the building and everything. That's how he knew that they were fighting, is because he had been drawing the building
Yeah.
and saw the fight upstairs.
So it goes, what's life without good neighbors, I guess. And, basically toward the end, William Hurt shows up again, just looking like with his perfect fucking hair and his chiseled jaw, just being like, Gregory, don't. Or whatever Mr. Collins' first name was. Or maybe he didn't call him that. Or maybe
Mr. Collins said Gregory.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, he ends up getting shoved off the stairs and falls down the stairwell and goes splat, and that's basically the film. So much of it was good. It kept you guessing who the actual source of the issue was in apartment 4. Was it Martha? Was it Greg trying to do something to get her to move in with him and dissuade her from living there? Was it the creepy locksmith guy across the way? Was it Jerry the super? It was almost like a game of Clue.
The other thing too was like they kept presenting, like typically in a movie like this, they have some like cheap jumps where it's things that just scare you because something popped out or fell over or whatever. And what I liked about this movie is they built up the tension by keep introducing unsettling people. It built naturally, and not only were you kept guessing, but then even if it was someone who wasn't the bad guy, they were still unsettling just by their personality.
Yeah, and nobody, like nobody had a clean bill of health in that regard. Even the people that, okay, these people aren't a threat, they're still, you don't want to be around them, and you don't trust them, and they're still skeezy.
Right.
Essentially, this film is just about having the worst neighbors ever. And it's a great commercial for home ownership. I'll tell you that.
And she should have moved out with her boyfriend
she should
from the beginning.
She should, yeah. You know what, though? But for $400 for that cool apartment, it was at least worth trying.
I'm just saying. She could have subletted it.
She could have, and she still can.
Yeah, I guess.
Because she's still on the lease.
Yeah.
I just want to know, where's the landlord in all of this? We never find out who the landlord is. At one point, I thought maybe it would be Mr. Collins.
Maybe the landlord got killed too.
Maybe. It's hard to say. I mean, what was his eventual goal? They were never quite clear on that.
Well, he wanted to get rid of everybody.
He did.
So it was just his place.
It just didn't seem realistic, though.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because, I mean, he took out 2 neighbors.
That's what happens, though, when things stop making sense. The insanity that he had. It's like his end game wasn't really a good end game.
It really wasn't, and he was unhinged.
Yeah.
Considerably. I just... And just to give you an idea, so Mr. Collins was played by Austin Pendleton. And he probably is best known to people as the leader of the military tech group in Short Circuit. And I don't mean the guy who was in Police Academy. I mean the other guy, with the nerdy guy with the glasses. That was this villain. And he was actually more intimidating in Short Circuit, shouting stat at Steve Guttenberg than he was in this.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, when he's fighting with Juliet Lewis, you just know, listen, I've seen a lot of Juliet Lewis movies. She's kind of a bad motherfucker. She would have whipped his ass in real life. He didn't have one up on her. And then Tobin Bell, Mr. Jigsaw, comes in, and he lays him out like a punk with a lamp. Come on. Everything else I could have believed up to that point. The neighbor drilling a hole in your floor and letting in rats. Your associates at work trying to take your job when the slightest thing goes wrong in your personal life. The moody, well-to-do partner who just wants his way. Or is it really the $400 a month rent? What really is the most unbelievable portion of this film? Maybe it was just the amount of rent.
Sure.
So let's talk about some of the soundtrack for a minute. There essentially wasn't one, but we did get one L7 song, which I rather enjoyed.
Yeah, there was just suspenseful music in the background throughout, the parts that were creepy.
Yeah. I just want to point out, so this movie came out in 99, and L7 put out the album Slap Happy in 99, and they opened for Ministry in 99, and I saw them in 99. And they were fucking awesome. That was a great show. So for me, that was a highlight of this film when I got to hear an L7 song. And it's not the first time Juliet Lewis has had an L7 song play in one of her movies. They played a L7 Shit List, or is it? Yeah, Shit List in one of the opening scenes of Natural Born Killers. She puts it on the jukebox right before her and Mickey start killing everybody. Good film.
Maybe she requested it.
Maybe she did. I'm just saying, even Viggo Mortensen, Mr. Lord of the Rings, huge L7 fan and friend of the band. Good stuff. That's completely beside the point, but it was a fun part,
Yeah.
It just the 90s. Good times. All right. Any other thoughts? I know. Here we go. So let's talk about best performance of the film.
Okay.
Juliet Lewis absolutely rocked this.
Yeah.
I don't know of any film that she's... I have not seen any other films that she's been the star of. She's always in a supporting role or co-starring in some fashion. Now, like in the case with Natural Born Killers, she's very high up there. Like she's right up there with, what's his name? I can't remember his name. But the other guy.
Viggo?
What? No, what?
Viggo Mortensen?
No. In Natural Born Killers.
No, I have no idea.
What the hell is his name? He was in Cheers.
Ted Danson?
No, the other guy. The blonde one. I could probably look it up right now. But
Woody Harrelson?
Yeah, Woody Harrelson. Yeah, okay. So, her and Woody Harrelson were right at, got top billing in that film and top starring. She was also in Way of the Gun. She's in Romeo's Bleeding, California, spelled with a K. Just has done just a ton of movies, and all of them are good. I've never seen Juliet Lewis in a bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great to see her just take the helm and just star in something for once.
Yeah.
So that was really a treat. William Hurt, I could have taken him or left him.
He wasn't perfect for this role, I think.
He was super underutilized.
I think you need to have someone who had a little more charm for that role.
Oh, that's a good point. He was not very charming for this.
He seemed very businesslike. He was good in that as far as like a serious adult kind of thing. So it was good in that regard. But I think you needed just someone with a little more pizzazz, more like the showman kind of thing.
There's that, but also
a little more warm.
Thing with William Hurt is he's a top caliber actor, and he was just regardless of how he played the role, he was just underutilized. On all the poster art, he's it's Juliet Lewis and William Hurt. He's not in the movie that much.
Yeah,
he's not in it half as much as Juliet Lewis is.
Yeah, she is. We see the movie 99% through her eyes, basically.
Yeah, and maybe 10% through his.
Yeah,
and just anybody could have played that role, really. Like, that didn't need to go to him.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It kind of makes you wonder, like, was he doing somebody a favor? Did it just seem like did he just like the film? Did he just want to work with Shelley Duvall? Who knows?
I think it was a strong concept, so maybe just, it was a good read-through.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he just liked the script and just wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
But it definitely wasn't what you would... The role he played was not worthy of his stature at that time. Is just all I'm trying to say. Now, what about... Oh, man. Tobin Bell, I think we talked about.
Yep.
Not in the movie very much, but awesome all the way through.
Yep.
Artie Lang was just a hot mess like he always is, so he did great. Yeah, no bad actors.
Yeah.
Just a couple underutilized ones.
Yep. Agreed.
Well, Ken, do you think this film has met our 3 primary criteria? Was it well written? Was it well acted? Was it well produced?
Yeah, I guess can we talk about the produced part of it?
Yeah, let's talk about the produced part of it.
So it's all on location. I'm assuming this is all the real place.
Kind of hard to find out because they don't really tell you anywhere on the internet.
Yeah, we couldn't figure out anything. There's like no information about this movie anywhere.
One thing I have learned, so many of the sets where it takes place inside of a building like that, it's almost always a soundstage.
Yeah. They had like the stairwell, in the exterior of the building.
Yeah, those may have been filmed on location, but it definitely wouldn't.
You're probably right.
Definitely wouldn't have been a complicated set by any means.
Yeah. So it was very well shot. They made good use of like light and darkness, in several different places. And
the cinematography is great. It really does set the mood.
They integrate
well.
the city into kind of the beginning part of it, where you feel kind of like the long shots of New York and different places. And then those kind of fade away throughout the movie, where it almost starts getting claustrophobic that we're just in this house.
Yeah, because it really, and her world definitely gets smaller too.
Mm-hmm.
Because even when she's in the city later on, it's always in close up.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot fewer I know at one point, maybe halfway through the film, they threw an establishing shot of the Statue of Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
And just to remind you, that's where you are. Because it would have been a while and you kind of forgotten about it.
Yeah.
And then after that, you don't really see the city much anymore till the very end,
Mm-hmm.
when she's out of this situation.
So I just thought it was good. It was almost like a funnel that was just pushing us towards this confined, claustrophobic situation.
Oh, absolutely.
So anyway,
Yeah, they really did do a good job with that.
that was good. I think the writing was good.
So yeah, well produced. I think well acted.
I think with a couple little tweaks, it could have been a bigger, film. We did find out that this was never released box office in United States.
This was a direct-to-video release, which kind of blows my mind.
It's definitely not a direct-to-video production. Like, they
It's
did not intend on that. This is like I know technically movie's a movie, but this was filmed with the intention to be a released movie.
In 1999, direct-to-video meant direct-to-video cassette and maybe DVD if you were lucky.
Yeah.
At Blockbuster. And there's only 4,000 ratings for this on IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
So not very many people have seen this, and there is so little literature out there about this film. It really is a lost film and it has so many great people in it.
And it was made with care, It was made in a very conscious way.
It was the directorial debut of John Klausner, who also wrote it. And he wrote Wonderland and he wrote Date Night. He was a second unit director on Something About Mary. He was a writer on Shrek Forever After. So, I mean, the guy's had some good credits and he's had some good work long after this film was made.
So anyway, that's just, I would definitely highlight those things as far as I think that also stood out about the movie. It was very, very well put together. Maybe they could have made a few little tweaks with maybe some writing elements, in not using some characters enough, I think.
It's not a perfect movie, that's for sure. But it's definitely an enjoyable one.
Yeah. It did keep me in suspense. So that's, for a movie like this, that's the highest praise really you could give it.
All right. I think that answers our question. It does meet the 3 primary criteria. Maybe not overwhelmingly, but certainly it hits the mark.
It's, competent in all regards.
A serviceable effort and mildly enjoyable.
Like, if you draw that line right down the middle, like, from really great to really bad, and you draw right in the middle, it was on the good side of that.
It was over 50% good.
Yes.
Yes. I'd say 75, 80.
Yeah.
If I had to put a number on it. Well, that is a wrap for tonight's episode here at the O&M Stockroom. We're your hosts, Brian McGarry
and Ken O'Malley.
If you enjoyed this segment of Complimentary Cinema, more episodes can be found at omstockroom.com, along with links to our Patreon page and various streaming outlets. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next Wednesday with an all-new episode.